Welcome back, Fromily. You know what time it is, right? Time to connect and dive deep into, well, you guessed it, all things From. I'm Apixa, and with me, always ready to tackle another mystery, is Magnum.
Ready and waiting, Apixa. You know we love these deep dives, and especially the ones where we get to really dissect the source material you all send our way. And this one, it's a doozy. So many great thoughts, theories, and even some external research, all focused on one thing: cracking the code of From.
Yeah, this deep dive is going to be all about you and the stuff you're interested in. Like, you're sitting right here with us, theorizing away. And guys, you sent us some seriously interesting stuff about, get this, detective work, like real deal sleuthing, specifically focusing on red herrings, those clever little distractions that send you barking up the wrong tree.
And, well, let's be honest, From is practically built on a foundation of red herrings. I mean, every episode seems to throw a new curveball, another piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit. So I thought, what better way to approach this deep dive than through the lens of a detective, learning to spot those misleading clues, to separate the signal from the noise.
Exactly. Today's mission, should you choose to accept it, is to arm you with the skills to be the ultimate From detective. We're going to break down these red herring strategies, not just how they work in the show, but how they play on our brains in real life, too. You'll be spotting those narrative tricks a mile away, maybe even predicting the twists and turns before they happen.
Who knows? You might even start second-guessing us. But that's the beauty of From, right? Keeps us all guessing, keeps those theories flowing. So, Apixa, why don't we kick things off with the first strategy?
All right, let's do it. First up, challenge the obvious. Think about it. When you're watching From, there's always that one character, that one event, that one seemingly crucial detail that just screams, here's the answer. It's so tempting to latch onto those obvious explanations.
Right. Our brains love a quick solution, a neat little package that ties everything up. But here's the thing. Red herrings thrive on that instinct. They want you to jump to conclusions. So, Apixa, I'm curious. Thinking back to the early episodes of From, who were some of the characters that immediately raised your suspicions, or maybe even those of our listeners?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I think we all have to admit that Victor, with his cryptic pronouncements and unsettling knowledge, seemed like a prime suspect for a while. It was almost too easy to point the finger at him, to assume he was somehow orchestrating the town's misfortunes.
Yeah, Victor. He's a classic example of a character designed to fit those mysterious outsider tropes. He seemed to know more than he let on, and his whole demeanor just screamed danger. But was that genuine or a masterful misdirection? Were the writers deliberately playing on our expectations by making him the seemingly obvious choice?
Exactly, and that's the key takeaway here for all of us. When something feels too obvious, too perfectly aligned with our initial assumptions, it's time to hit the pause button. Ask yourself, is From deliberately leading me down this path? And if so, why? What am I potentially missing by focusing solely on the most apparent explanation?
Because in a town like From, the truth is rarely found on the surface. You got to dig deeper, peel back those layers, question those initial instincts. Strategy number 2, Apixa.
All right, next up we have track the clues timing. This one's all about paying attention to when certain pieces of information are revealed. The source material you guys sent us makes a great point. Red herrings often love to make a grand entrance early on, while genuine clues tend to emerge more subtly and develop over time.
It's a classic storytelling technique, really. You want to hook the audience early on, throw out some intriguing possibilities, set them on those false trails. Remember all those initial explanations we got in From about the nature of the monsters? Or the reason why people can't leave? Did those early explanations hold up under scrutiny as the show progressed?
Not really, no. In fact, a lot of those early, seemingly definitive answers in From were directly contradicted or at least seriously complicated by later revelations. It's almost as if the show is saying, here's a simple explanation to tide you over for now, but don't get too comfortable because the real answer is much stranger and more complex.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a brilliant way to keep the audience guessing, keep them coming back for more. It's like the writers are dangling these little bits of information in front of us, knowing full well that we'll have to revise our understanding as the story unfolds. Remember all those early theories about the talismans? Initially, they seemed like simple protection from the creatures, but
But as we got deeper into the show, their purpose became much more layered, much more intricately tied to the town's history and its overall mystery. We might have clung to that early, simplistic explanation for a while, but it became clear that we needed to keep an open mind, to reevaluate our understanding as new information emerged.
exactly. And that's the key takeaway for our From detectives out there. Pay attention to the timing of reveals. If something is dropped in those early episodes with a lot of fanfare, a big, dramatic reveal, be cautious. Compare those early explanations with the information that surfaces later in the season. Does it still hold up? Or has it become less significant, overshadowed by new discoveries that paint a very different picture?
The timing of a clue can be a huge tell. It can be the difference between a genuine piece of the puzzle and a well-placed distraction. Now, Magnum, what's our next strategy for unmasking those sneaky red herrings?
All right, Ipixa. Strategy number 3 is all about spotting the inconsistencies, those little details that just don't quite fit. It's called Spot the Misfit. Our source material points out that true clues tend to contribute to a coherent overall picture, whereas red herrings often stick out like a sore thumb.
That's right. It's about paying close attention to anything that feels off, anything that doesn't quite align with the established rules of the From universe or contradict other pieces of evidence we've gathered along the way.
Have you ever noticed any inconsistencies at Pixa that made you pause, made you think, hold on, that doesn't add up? Maybe something about the town's geography, a monster's behavior, or even a character's reaction that felt strangely out of sync with what we've come to understand about how things work in this place.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes it's a visual thing. Maybe an object appears in one scene and then vanishes in the next without any explanation. Or perhaps it's a character's behavior. They suddenly act completely out of character, making a decision that contradicts everything we know about their motivations.
Yeah, those jarring notes can be incredibly revealing. They might be genuine oversights by the writers, things they'll eventually address and explain, but they could also be carefully planted red herrings meant to challenge our understanding of the town's internal logic to make us question everything we thought we knew.
Exactly. So when you spot one of these misfits in From, ask yourself, does this eventually find its place in the larger puzzle? Does it get explained and integrated into the story? Or does it remain an unexplained oddity, perhaps pointing us down a false path, a dead end designed to distract us from the real answers?
Our job as From detectives is to be meticulous, to question everything. Don't just passively accept every detail at face value. When something feels out of place, make a note of it. It can be a genuine clue waiting to be explained, or it could be a clever piece of misdirection. And that brings us to strategy number 4, Epixa. What do you say we shift our focus to the source of the information itself?
All right, let's do it. Strategy number 4 is dig into the source. In From, where trust is a luxury few can afford, knowing who is providing a piece of information is just as important as the information itself. After all, information is rarely neutral, especially in a place where survival is on the line.
Absolutely. Everyone in From has their own agenda, their own fears, their own understanding or misunderstanding of how things work. That inevitably colors the information they share. Think about the various factions within the town, the personal rivalries, the secrets people are keeping.
It's like a giant game of telephone where information gets distorted and manipulated as it passes from one person to the next. A rumor starts, a theory spreads, and suddenly everyone's convinced it's the truth, even if it's based on faulty assumptions or deliberately skewed information.
Precisely. So when someone offers a seemingly crucial piece of information, like a clue about a monster's weakness or a way to escape, we need to ask ourselves, what's their track record? Have they been reliable in the past? Do they have a reason to mislead others?
Think about it. If a character who's known for their self-preservation suddenly offers a seemingly selfless solution, there's a good chance there's more to the story. Maybe they're trying to manipulate the situation to their advantage, or they're unwittingly passing along bad information that could have disastrous consequences.
Absolutely. So the key takeaway for our listeners is this. When a character in From shares a piece of information, especially one that seems like a major breakthrough, don't just blindly accept it. Dig deeper. Question the source. What do we know about this person? What are their motivations? Could their own biases or fears be shaping their narrative?
Healthy skepticism is your best friend in From. Don't just take things at face value, dig into the source, understand the context, and you'll be much better equipped to separate the genuine clues from the manipulative whispers. All right, Magnum, hit us with strategy number 5.
Strategy number 5 is all about the presentation, how the show itself highlights certain details and downplays others. It's called Gauge the Spotlight. Red herrings, you see, love to play with our attention. They'll either bask in the spotlight, demanding our notice, or try to slip past us unnoticed in the shadows.
Yeah, From is a master at manipulating our focus. Think about those scenes where the camera lingers on a specific object, the music swells dramatically, or an entire episode revolves around a seemingly significant event. It's like the show is screaming, "This is important, pay attention!"
Right, it's like a magician's misdirection. They wave their hand in one direction, drawing your eye, while the real trick is happening somewhere else entirely. From does this with information too. They can make seemingly unimportant details seem crucial, while downplaying vital clues, hoping we'll overlook them.
Remember that time we all got fixated on specific, seemingly important detail from the show? We spent weeks dissecting it, building theories around it, and then nothing. It turned out to be a complete dead end, a narrative red herring. Meanwhile, a subtle detail from an earlier episode, one we'd barely even noticed, turned out to be the real key to understanding what was going on.
Exactly. It's all about understanding how From uses visual cues, auditory cues, and even narrative structure to manipulate our perception. So the takeaway here is this. Don't assume that the most dramatic or heavily emphasized elements are necessarily the most important.
And don't dismiss those subtle details too quickly. Pay attention to the overall distribution of narrative attention. What is From really trying to tell you, and just as importantly, what might it be trying to distract you from? It's all about reading between the lines, looking beyond the surface, and understanding the show's visual language.
Now, Apixa, I think it's time to delve into the emotional core of From with our next strategy. It's a crucial one because it deals with how the show manipulates our feelings to cloud our judgment.
Oh, absolutely. This one's all about keeping a cool head when the show is trying to pull at your heartstrings. Strategy number 6 is resist the emotional tug. Our source material reminds us that those moments designed to evoke a strong emotional response, shock, grief, fear, even relief, can be particularly effective red herrings.
You see, our brains are wired to respond to emotional stimuli, and From exploits that masterfully. Think about those gut-wrenching character deaths, the desperate pleas, the tearful confessions. Those moments are designed to hit us right in the feels, to make us forget about logic and reason.
It's like we're so caught up in the emotional roller coaster that we don't stop to question what we're seeing and hearing. We accept things at face value because we're so invested in the characters and their struggles. But that's precisely what the red herrings want. They want us to be emotionally compromised, to let our guard down.
Remember that time-specific emotionally charged event from the show? That was a classic example of emotional manipulation. The show played on our sympathies, our fears, and for a while we were all completely thrown off the scent.
Totally. We were so caught up in the moment that we didn't see the inconsistencies, the clues that didn't quite add up. So the key takeaway here is this. Acknowledge the emotional impact of those powerful moments in From, but then consciously try to detach yourself. Analyze a situation objectively. Look for factual inconsistencies, logical fallacies, and ask yourself if the information truly aligns with the established details of the show.
Don't let those heartstrings cloud your judgment. Remember, From is a master manipulator, and emotions are its most potent weapon. All right, Apixa, on to strategy number 7. How about we bring things back to the central mysteries of the show?
Sounds good. Let's do it. Strategy number 7 is link it to the core. This one's all about constantly evaluating whether a new clue or piece of information actually contributes to our understanding of those big, overarching questions that drive From. If it leads us down a tangential path, a rabbit hole of information that doesn't seem connected to the main puzzle, it's probably a red herring.
In a show with as many interlocking storylines and character arcs as From, it's easy to get swept up in the individual dramas and conflicts. But we need to keep our eyes on the prize. The essential questions remain. What is this town? Why are these people trapped here? What's the deal with the monsters? And how can they escape?
Exactly. If a clue or a subplot doesn't seem to shed light on those fundamental questions, we need to ask ourselves, what purpose does it serve? Is it just character development? World building? Or is it a deliberate misdirection, a way to keep us entertained while distracting us from the real answers?
Think about it. We could spend hours dissecting the intricacies of a specific character's backstory or analyzing a seemingly isolated conflict within the town. But if those explorations don't ultimately help us understand the town's nature or the possibility of escape, they might be red herrings.
Right. They might be interesting, they might add to the show's overall richness and complexity, but they might not be crucial to solving the central mysteries. So the actionable advice here is to constantly ask yourself, how does this new piece of information help us answer the big questions about From?
If the connection is weak or non-existent, it's worth considering if you're dealing with a narrative detour, a red herring designed to lead you astray. All right, Apixa, let's keep those brains firing with strategy number 8. What do you say we talk about purpose?
Okay, strategy number 8 is seek purpose. Our source material makes a great point here. Genuine clues should move the story forward or deepen our understanding of the central puzzle. Red herrings, on the other hand, often leave us with a sense of, well, having learned nothing of real substance.
We've all had that experience with From, haven't we? We watch a dramatic event unfold, we gasp at a shocking revelation, and then the dust settles, and we realize we're no closer to understanding the truth. It's like the show gave us a sugar rush of excitement without any real nutritional value.
Right. It's all flash and no substance. Those moments are designed to keep us on the edge of our seats, to keep us emotionally invested, but they don't actually provide any concrete answers.
Think about those terrifying monster encounters. They're suspenseful, they're visually stunning, but do they actually reveal any new information about the creature's weaknesses? Or how to defeat them? Or maybe it's a cryptic message, a prophecy, a vision that's more confusing than illuminating.
It's like the show is saying, ooh, spooky, right? Now back to the real mystery. Those moments are designed to generate suspense, to keep us guessing, but they might not actually advance our understanding of the core mysteries.
So the key insight here is this. Reflect on whether specific events or revelations in From truly move the plot forward, whether they provide genuine insight into the town's nature, its origins, or the possibility of escape. If a clue doesn't deepen your understanding of the central mysteries, if it feels like a narrative dead end, it's probably a red herring. All right, it picks up on to strategy number 9. Let's talk about timing, but this time on a more macro level.
Okay, next up we have watch the rhythm. This strategy is all about paying attention to those strategic points in the narrative where From loves to throw us a curveball, those moments where a well-placed red herring can completely derail our thinking.
Just when you think you're starting to piece things together, From throws in a new twist, a seemingly crucial clue or a shocking event that makes you question everything you thought you knew. It's a brilliant way to keep the audience on their toes, to keep those theories swirling.
Think about those moments right before a major reveal, a big answer is about to drop. Suddenly, a new suspect emerges, or a new piece of information surfaces that throws all our previous assumptions into doubt. It's like the show is saying, hold your horses, don't get ahead of yourselves, consider this new possibility before jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. And those strategically timed red herrings can be incredibly effective. They capitalize on our desire to solve the puzzle, to predict what's coming next. By introducing a false lead at a critical juncture, From amplifies the impact of the real revelation when it finally arrives.
It's like setting us up for a fall, then pulling the rug out from under us at the last moment. So the advice here is to be extra vigilant during those moments of high tension and From, especially when a big plot twist seems imminent. A sudden new clue or a dramatic turn of events right before a major reveal could very well be a red herring designed to send you down the wrong path.
Remember, From loves to play with our expectations. Just when you think you have it figured out, the game changes. All right, Apixa, let's wrap things up with our final strategy, one that's crucial for navigating the constantly shifting landscape of From.
All right, strategy number 10, stay loose. This one's all about keeping an open mind, being willing to adapt your theories as new information emerges, and not getting too attached to any one particular explanation too early in the game.
In a show like From, where the mysteries are so multi-layered and the answers are so elusive, getting locked into a single interpretation can be your downfall. It can blind you to other possibilities, make you more susceptible to those cleverly disguised red herrings that happen to support your pre-existing beliefs.
We've all been there. We find a theory that feels plausible, that makes sense of the chaos, and then we start looking for evidence that confirms it, while ignoring or downplaying anything that contradicts it. It's a natural human tendency, but it's also a red herring's best friend.
Our own desire for resolution can work against us. We want the answers, we want to solve the puzzle, and sometimes that can lead us to cling to a faulty theory, even when the evidence is pointing us in a different direction. From plays on that desire, that need for closure.
So the key takeaway here is to cultivate a sense of intellectual humility. Be willing to constantly reevaluate your theories, to let go of those cherished ideas when the show throws a curveball. Don't be afraid to admit you were wrong, to start from scratch if necessary.
A flexible and adaptable mindset is your greatest weapon against the red herrings of From. Embrace the uncertainty, revel in the mystery, and be willing to let the show surprise you. Because in From, as in life, the truth is often much stranger and more complex than we initially imagine. All right, Apixa, I think it's time to expand on these fundamental strategies, add some nuance, dive a little deeper into the specific ways From plays with our perceptions.
Yeah, let's do it. We've got those 10 core strategies down, but there's always more to learn, more ways to refine our detective skills.
So, what's our first advanced technique for spotting those red herrings? Well, Apixa, one thing we got to be mindful of is what our source material calls overly dramatic distractions. From is a show that knows how to turn up the volume on the drama, those sudden, shocking monster attacks, those over-the-top emotional breakdowns, those seemingly life-or-death conflicts that have us gripping the edge of our seats. But here's the question. Is all that drama actually serving the story? Or is it a deliberate misdirection?
That's a really good point. Sometimes those big dramatic moments in From feel almost theatrical in their intensity. It's like the show is saying, look at this is important. But is it? Or is it just a shiny distraction meant to divert our attention from something more subtle but ultimately more significant?
Exactly. Like, remember those gruesome monster sequences, those heart-stopping chases through the woods?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were terrifying. They got our adrenaline pumping. But did we actually learn anything new about the monsters? Or the town? Or the possibility of escape?
Not really, no. It was pure spectacle, pure emotional manipulation. And while there's definitely a place for that in a show like From, we have to be careful not to get so caught up in the spectacle that we miss the real clues, the ones hidden beneath the surface of the drama.
Right. So the next time you're watching From and something happens that just feels over-the-top dramatic, ask yourself, is this genuinely moving the story forward? Is it revealing something new about the mysteries of the town? Or is it just noise? A distraction designed to keep me entertained while leading me away from the real answers.
Okay, that's a great point. Drama can be a very effective tool for misdirection. So, what's our next advanced strategy for staying ahead of the game in From?
Well, at Pixel, let's talk about those moments that feel a little too perfect, a little too convenient. Those clues that just slot into our existing theories with almost suspicious ease, resolving a nagging question without any real effort. Our source material warns us to be wary of such seemingly perfect resolutions.
It's like finding the exact missing piece of a puzzle at the exact moment you need it, like the universe is conspiring to help you solve the mystery. It feels good, it feels like progress, but in a show as complex and twisty as From, it's almost always too good to be true.
Right. Those two perfect clues are often red herrings in disguise. They might resolve one immediate question, but if they fail to connect to the larger puzzle, they leave other inconsistencies unexplained. A genuine clue in From tends to have a ripple effect, illuminating multiple aspects of the mystery, not just one tiny corner of it.
So, if a discovery in From seems to tie up a loose end a little too neatly, a little too conveniently, don't just pat yourself on the back and move on. Take a closer look at the other dangling threads. Does this perfect clue create a truly cohesive picture? Or is it just a temporary fix, a way to lull you into a false sense of security before the show pulls the rug out from under you again?
It's all about looking beyond the immediate satisfaction of solving one small piece of the puzzle and considering the holistic impact of a clue. Does it truly contribute to our overall understanding of From? Or is it just a well-placed distraction designed to keep us on the wrong track?
Okay, that's a great reminder to always be thinking critically, even when a clue seems like a perfect fit. So, Magnum, what's our next advanced strategy for avoiding those narrative traps in From?
Let's talk about the rhythm of the show at Pixa. Our source material suggests paying close attention to the pacing of the narrative. Red herrings can often disrupt the natural flow of the story, either through a sudden surge of information or a prolonged period of slow burn filled with seemingly insignificant details.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like those early episodes of a season where From just bombards us with a ton of new characters, new locations, new mysteries. It's like information overload, and it's hard to tell what's genuinely important and what's just noise.
Right. That initial onslaught of information could be a deliberate tactic to overwhelm us, to make it harder to see the forest for the trees. We're so busy trying to process all those new details that we miss the subtle clues, the ones that are actually setting up the bigger mysteries.
And then there are those slower episodes, the ones that focus on character development or those seemingly mundane everyday events in the town. We might be tempted to tune out during those episodes thinking they're just filler, but
But those slower episodes can be just as deceptive as the action-packed ones. They might be subtly burying a crucial clue amidst the everyday occurrences, hoping we'll be lulled into a false sense of security and miss it entirely.
so the takeaway here is to be mindful of the pacing in From. Pay attention to when the show speeds up and when it slows down. Those shifts in rhythm can be a tell, a sign that a red herring might be lurking nearby.
Exactly. When the information flow is too fast, we might get overwhelmed and miss crucial details. When it's too slow, we might get complacent and miss the subtle clues hidden beneath the surface. It's all about finding that balance, staying alert, and always questioning the show's motives. Now, Apixa, let's talk about something that can be particularly tricky to spot: stereotypes.
Oh, yeah, stereotypes. Those preconceived notions about characters and situations that can lead us to make faulty assumptions. Our source material makes a great point here. Mystery creators often rely on familiar tropes and stereotypes to mislead the audience, and From is no exception.
We all have those ingrained biases, those mental shortcuts that help us navigate the world. But those same shortcuts can also lead us astray, especially when we're dealing with a show as complex and unpredictable as From.
Think about those classic horror movie tropes. The mysterious stranger who turns out to be the killer, the innocent-looking child who harbors a dark secret, the skeptical authority figure who refuses to believe the protagonist's claims.
Those tropes exist for a reason. They tap into our shared cultural understanding of storytelling, and they can be very effective at manipulating our expectations. But in From, we need to be careful not to let those tropes cloud our judgment.
Exactly. We can't just assume that a character is trustworthy or untrustworthy based on their outward appearance or their initial behavior. We need to look deeper, to analyze their actions and motivations within the specific context of the show's narrative.
So the next time you find yourself making a judgment about a character in From, based on a stereotype, ask yourself, is this judgment based on concrete evidence within the show? Or am I simply projecting my own preconceived notions onto the situation?
It's a good reminder to always question our assumptions, to dig deeper, and to let the show surprise us. All right, Magnum, what's our next strategy for avoiding those stereotypical traps?
All right, Apixa, this next strategy is all about those clues that make a big splash early on, but then mysteriously disappear as the story progresses. It's called Look for Clues That Fade Out.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like the show dangles this intriguing mystery in front of us, something that seems incredibly significant, and then it just drops it. It never gets resolved. It doesn't tie into any major revelations, and it's never mentioned again.
Right. It's like a magician's disappearing act. Poof.
Yeah.
Gone. And we're left wondering what happened, where it went, and why it was even introduced in the first place.
I'm thinking about specific, seemingly important detail or event from the show that was never resolved. We all got really invested in that, built all these theories around it, and then nothing. It just faded away, leaving us with more questions than answers.
Exactly. And those fading clues are often red herrings. They're meant to grab our attention, to get us thinking, but they're not actually leading anywhere. They're dead ends, designed to distract us from the real clues, the ones that are actually building towards the bigger mysteries.
So the takeaway here is to keep track of those early mysteries and clues. If something seems incredibly important early on, but then disappears without a trace, it's worth considering if it was just a red herring, a bit of narrative misdirection meant to throw us off the scent.
And that brings us to a very important point, Apixa. Sometimes the most telling clues are the ones that aren't there, the ones that From deliberately omits from the narrative.
Oh, that's a fascinating perspective. It's like we get so focused on the information that is presented to us that we fail to notice the glaring omissions, the unanswered questions, the unexplored corners of the story.
Exactly. Red herrings often work by directing our attention towards specific details while diverting us from these crucial gaps. So the next time you're watching From, pay attention to what's not being said or shown.
Like, think about those key characters whose backstories are never fully explored, or those significant events in the town's past that are only hinted at but never explained in detail. Those absences might be more telling than the information that is explicitly provided.
It's like this show is saying, look over here, look at all this intriguing stuff. But meanwhile, the real clues are hidden in the shadows, in the things that are left unsaid, the stories that are never fully told.
That's a great reminder to always be thinking critically, to not just passively accept the information that's given to us, but to actively seek out those missing pieces, those gaps in the narrative that might hold the key to unlocking the truth.
Now, Apixa, let's talk about something that can be incredibly frustrating. Those clues that require a ton of mental energy to decipher, but ultimately lead to very little in terms of actual progress.
Oh yeah, those are the worst. It's like you're trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, twisting and turning, but never actually getting any closer to solving the puzzle.
Exactly. Our source material refers to this as the effort to reward ratio. Red herrings often have a very high effort to reward ratio. You put in a lot of mental work, you build elaborate theories, you try to make all the pieces fit, but ultimately you end up right back where you started.
I'm thinking about specific theory or clue that required a lot of effort to understand but ultimately led nowhere. We spent weeks dissecting that, trying to make it work, and then it turned out to be a complete dead end.
And those dead ends can be incredibly demoralizing. They make you question your own ability to understand the show, to see the patterns, to make the connections. But here's the thing. Those convoluted, high-effort clues are often red herrings. They're designed to lead you down a rabbit hole, to waste your time and energy, while the real clues are often much simpler, much more straightforward.
So the takeaway here is to be mindful of how much mental energy you're investing in a particular clue or theory. If it feels like you're really having to stretch the bounds of logic, if it requires a series of improbable events or relies on obscure and unsupported assumptions, it's probably time to step back and consider if you're chasing a red herring.
Sometimes the simplest explanation, the correct one. And those complex, convoluted theories, they might just be elaborate smokescreens designed to conceal the truth in plain sight. All right, Depixa, let's talk about something that can be particularly deceptive. Dialogue.
Ooh, dialogue. The spoken word. It seems so straightforward, so easy to understand. But as our source material points out, dialogue in From can be a minefield of misdirection. Characters can intentionally or unintentionally drop misleading clues through what they say, and perhaps even more significantly, through what they choose not to say.
Exactly. We tend to trust the spoken word, especially when it comes from characters we like or admire. But in From, we have to remember that everyone has their own agenda, their own biases, their own incomplete understanding of the situation.
Think about those scenes where a character is recounting an event and they fixate on a seemingly unimportant detail, spending an inordinate amount of time describing something that doesn't seem relevant to the bigger picture.
Right. It's like they're trying to draw our attention to something specific, to emphasize a particular point, while subtly diverting us from something else, something they don't want us to notice.
Or think about those characters who give vague or evasive answers to direct questions, who seem to be deliberately skirting around the truth, steering the conversation in a particular direction.
Exactly. Those subtle shifts in dialogue, those moments of hesitation, those carefully chosen words, they can all be clues, indicators that something is amiss, that we're not getting the whole story.
So the takeaway here is to pay very close attention to the nuances of dialogue in From. Listen not just to what is being said, but also to how it's being said, to the tone of voice, to the pauses, to the unspoken words that hang heavy in the air.
Ask yourself, is this character being straightforward? Or are they trying to manipulate the situation to control the flow of information? Are they consciously misleading others? Or are their own biases and incomplete understanding unintentionally creating a false narrative?
Dialogue in From is a double-edged sword. It can be a source of genuine information, but it can also be a weapon of misdirection. It's up to us to learn how to wield that weapon to discern,